And welcome back, everyone, to the 2024 AHSAA Playoff Bracket Show. I'm Susan Carruthers, and I'm joined now by Coach Terry Curtis of UMS-Wright, head football coach, also president of the Central Board for the AHSAA, also a Hall of Famer. The list goes on and on. Coach, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Susan. It's always good to see you. I thank your mom and daddy every time I look at you.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to see you in person because I interviewed you for the weekly show over Zoom last week. So it is better to be in person. Nice to be in person. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. So we can talk about UMS-Wright being in the playoffs. That's one reason you're here. But you also were on stage during the meeting this morning to represent the AHSAA. So let's start with that. Tell us about your role with AHSAA and how that plays into this playoff bracket show.
Well, just being the president, the executive director could not be here today and asked me just to kind of welcome the coaches, knowing that I knew most of them and all, so it was just more of a welcome and kind of tell where he was this morning, why he couldn't be here. And you know, it's always great to be at a playoff meeting. That means your team's in the playoffs, and you get to make a lot of friends. And I'm really glad that we've gone back to. I know a lot of coaches don't like it, but I really like the meetings every week because a lot of the guys up north in central Alabama, we don't ever get to see those guys except for a clinic or something. So it's kind of a little reunion among coaches because we are or should be a fraternity, and hopefully we'll stay that way.
That's right. And you're right. It's good to get to put those faces with names and shake those hands maybe before you meet them on the field Friday night. We talked a little bit in the show opener about what exactly goes on in this meeting. So let me just refresh everybody's memory, and you can jump in and correct me or add anything you want to. But these meetings take place in Montgomery every Saturday during the playoffs. So there were 208, I believe, coaches here today. Every Saturday, that number gets cut in half, obviously, as the teams, dwindle down. We're at AUM, needed a big conference room this morning. As the numbers reduce, we will eventually be over at the AHSAA offices. But what we do is we go over the rules. We talk through the matchups. I believe that the coaches have to agree to play each other, agree to play by the rules. What else can you add?
I mean, officials. Officials, the first round you can use 5 or 7. And, the biggest thing was we used to have 2 different times. 1A through 3A would meet, and then 4A through 6A would come in afterwards. But now by having this big room, we can all meet at the same time. And the first meeting lasts longer, Susan, just because you're going over everything. Mr. Ingram goes over the media, what you can do, what they can't do, how you let them in, tickets, all that sort of thing. Then the head of officials gets up, talks about 5 or 7 officials and what you need to do to welcome them and have them ready. Then you go through a checklist of probably 25 different things about bands and PA announcers, and it's a very intense meeting. And then the coaches or whoever their representative is to take that back to the schools and show their principals whether and they can't say that something wasn't. I didn't know
covered,
that
right.
Because everything they need to know is covered in this meeting. Now, how serious some of them take it, I'm sure some of them are serious, some of them are not so serious. But the whole gamut is covered. Yeah. And now they won't go into much detail from here on out because the ones here will be repeaters. But it's a great first meeting. It went very well with the matchups. And if there's any questions, there's Central Board members here to go ahead and fix it right then without having to wait so the brackets can go.
Well, and I think it's so important that I'm glad you mentioned how we go over all of these rules and all of this. I mean, the details, like you mentioned, the band, the officials, the tickets, all of these rules are standard across the state. They've all been agreed upon by all of the member schools. This is a huge deal in Alabama. High school football has been for generations. I mean, feels like life and death sometimes for some people. And so it's important, I think, that we reiterate how these rules have all been agreed upon by the member schools, and then even gather these coaches, make sure everybody's clear on all of the rules. I think that's really important. And like you said, there are coaches who have been here many, many times, yourself included, but there are some coaches here today, I'm sure, who've never been here before. This is a new stage for them.
You can tell those guys. They had a big grin on their face when they walked in. They just kind of looked around in awe, like, where do I sit?
Right.
Because these coaches are superstitious. We all now, over at the office,
I'm sure
everybody's got their own seat.
Okay.
And you don't, like I said, on the third row, fourth seat.
Okay.
Every meeting.
Oh, that's good to know. So I don't sit in someone's seat.
So these young guys come in and they kind of ask you, is it okay if I sit here?
Right.
And you know if it's somebody who's been sitting by you, and I'll say, yeah, you're good. They're not here this year.
Right.
But it's just fun, especially to see those newer guys.
Yeah.
And some older guys who don't make the playoffs on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal for them, their school, the community.
Right.
It don't matter if you're a first seed or fourth seed.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that the ones who are 10, you have to give your record now. And the ones who are 10-0 are real boisterous. 10-0, like the whole room, you can hear them over across the street.
Right.
Then you get the ones who are 5-5 and 4-6. They just kind of 4-6.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
4-6.
Hey, but starting Friday night, everybody's 0-0.
That's
so
the way you got to look at it.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. There'll be, and I'll promise you, I've seen it. I follow these brackets, whether I'm in it or not, pretty closely, and I'll promise you, I can just about tell you there'll be 7, 8, 10, 4 seeds, beat 1 seed.
Oh, yeah.
It happens every year.
And this is why we watch.
And that's what's so beautiful about it. Everybody's 0-0. Some teams had injuries. Some started off bad. They're playing better.
Yeah.
And you just got to get hot at the right time.
That's right.
And make a run at it. So it's an exciting time for everybody that's here, no matter what your record is.
That's right. Well, you are wearing 2 hats, so I want to ask you about this UMS-Wright team.
Well, we're just making a lot of mistakes. We've done it all year. We played St. Michael this past Friday night. There, I think 9-1 or something, and it was back and forth game. We had our chances, and we just got some crucial penalties, and Phillip's son's really good, and we got beat at the end. I think Texas being there and a few big-time colleges fired him up, so he played not better than normal because he plays well every week, but he was on fire the first half. So, we'll see. I think we're getting better, but, we just got to cut out our mistakes and win some football games.
And you've got a clean slate like we talked about, so that's great. Well, Coach, thanks so much for taking the time. I do think it's important that we clarify what goes on here today, why we even do this meeting, and we just appreciate the insight that you could add.
Well, it was a great meeting, great first meeting for Coach Harmon and his staff, and they ran it well.
Fantastic. And we'll be right back after this on the AHSAA 2024 Playoff Bracket Show.